can you turn the volume off on this? And stay muted on that? And then just do it like it's a regular council meeting, like you're looking at this camera. So there's your main, what we normally use is that angle.
Oh, okay.
Better shot.
Okay.
As long as your volume is down.
Yeah, I turn my volume down.
And that you're muted.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to get the feedback
Yeah.
going through this.
It's muted. It's muted, and I turn the volume off.
And you'll just hear the meeting through here like normal.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second meeting for 2022. I would ask for an approval of the agenda, please. It's been approved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, please vote now. And I don't have that in front of me, if you could. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me, Your Worship?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Motion carried 7-0.
Yes.
This evening, I just want to draw your attention to the Black History Month. February is the month in Canada, across Canada, where we participate in Black History Month. And this year's theme is February and Forever, celebrating Black History Month today and every day, which focuses on recognizing the daily contributions that Black Canadians make to Canada. I invite all residents of Quispamsis to learn more about Black history during the month of February. I don't need to tell you that we are in the depths of winter, but the good news is that January is now behind us, and Fundy Winterfest begins today, the first day of February. There are all kinds of activities within our region. You can see the entire list by visiting facebook.com/Fundy Winterfest. Then grab your hat and mittens and get outside and enjoy our winter that we are now celebrating with lots of snow. So moving forward, I ask Councillor Olson to please read the treaty acknowledgement and the moment of reflection. Councillor Olson, I think you are muted.
Sorry, Your Worship. We would like to respectfully acknowledge that Quispamsis exists on the traditional territory of the Wolastoq, Whig, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq people whose ancestors along Passamaquoddy tribes signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s. We would like to take this moment to pay respect to the elders, past and present, and the descendants of this traditional territory. And may we remind ourselves of the important work we have before us tonight. May we make good decisions without prejudice or bias and always in the best interests of our community, which we are here to serve.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. I am looking for a disclosure of interest. I don't believe there are any this evening. So number 5 on our agenda is presentations. And this evening, it's my pleasure to welcome Envision St. John, the Regional Growth Agency CEO, Paulette Hicks. So Paulette, I'm going to turn this over to you and Mr. Kennedy.
Wonderful. Good evening, Your Worship, and good evening, councillors. It's wonderful to be back presenting to the town of Quispamsis. And I am going to share my screen. I've got a slide deck that I'm going to go through, and then we can open it up for questions.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Wonderful. I'll just start. Okay. So again, it's great to be back here tonight. This is in follow-up to the last presentation where I presented the strategic vision for Envision St. John. And tonight I'd like to walk us through how really we're going to define success moving forward. So again, Envision St. John, the Regional Growth Agency, is the region's sales, marketing, and support engine, strategically focused on attracting people, visitors, business, and investment. Again, just in dovetailing back to the strategic plan, we have set ambitious targets for this region for growth. So our 10-year outcomes, just to remind everybody that we are looking to grow the population in our region by 25,000. Looking to increase the municipal tax base by 30 to 35% from 2022, as well as to continue to build a strong place brand for our region. So at Envision St. John, how are we going to measure success and what do we do? So Envision St. John, the Regional Growth Agency, is accelerating regional growth by connecting innovators, entrepreneurs, and builders to get stuff done now. So the role of the agency really is an enabler, a convener. We bring the right people to the table to look at where our priorities are and how we're going to build strategy to move the growth file forward for our region. As you know, we've set strategic priorities as I've outlined in our strategic vision. So the growth readiness, how are we going to anticipate the growth and be ready to make sure that when we grow, that we're looking at all aspects. So whether that is, the right jobs, real estate, doctors, healthcare. So how do we make sure that our region is ready and we tick all those boxes? A big focus again is talent acquisition. We've heard that over and over again, that talent is so critical in order to support the growth in our region for our businesses, certainly focusing on population with respect to an immigration strategy, bringing New Brunswickers back home, and really looking at a retention strategy overall. And then again, that third strategic priority is entrepreneurship and business growth, really supporting startups, scale-ups, access to capital, making the right business connections, and really engaging entrepreneurs and leaders to really help define a high potential innovation play for our region. So I'd like to take you through a couple of examples now that we have been 1 year. It's a milestone for the agency. We've been operating for 1 full year. Big lift, a lot of volunteers, a lot of work with our board, a lot of work with the team at Envision, and hit a lot of milestones to put us in the place that we're at today. So today we've identified a number of priorities and priority growth opportunities that we've defined as platforms. So we have a new model where we're really focusing on where the growth opportunities are, again, bringing the right people to the table to really look at the strategy to bring these things to fruition. So I wanted to give you an example of some of the work that we're doing, how we do the work, and how it's measured. So the first opportunity is, the transformational growth opportunity for Port St. John. Everything we do really is about lining up to our 10-year outcomes. More people, increasing and growing the property tax revenue, and building that strong place brand. So looking at the port opportunity, this certainly aligns with the talent pipeline. The opportunity at the port could see up to 800 to 1,000 jobs. Certainly looking, that growth comes from, growing the capacity of cargo and cruise. There's a focus on building out that full supply chain as it relates to the other companies and the logistics of what the port brings to our region. Certainly new investment opportunities. We're meeting with companies that are looking at our port and how they can actually bring their business to the port or expand businesses that are currently at the port and around the port. Looking at product development, certainly from a cruise perspective, we want to make sure that when cruise comes back to our region, that we've got product that really enhances their experience and certainly builds on more cruise passengers as years to come. Improving our residents' access to waterfront, which I'm sure you've seen with the investment at the waterfront, and overall elevating our place brand. We really are focused on working with our partners and certainly the partners at the port around how do we position Port St. John as the next great port in Canada. So again, this really is about looking at opportunities through that lens of trying to reach our 10-year outcomes. Another example that I'd like to share is the opportunity that we're again working with the University of New Brunswick in the Integrated Health Initiative. This again is another opportunity that we've identified to be transformational, again aligns with the 10-year outcomes and has some short and midterm outcomes. So again, this aligns with building the talent pipeline, preparing our region for growth, so meeting the current and future health occupations. So, certainly looking at what does our talent requirements need in the next, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. We've certainly had lots of lessons learned through the pandemic. This particular initiative and program will actually increase our student population at UNB by 27%. So looking at 500 new students over the next 5 years, and 50% of those students would actually be attracted from outside New Brunswick. So again, looking at that target of growing our population base, how do we actually retain those students once we get them here? Looking at this initiative, Integrated Health, we're looking at graduates starting in a new position once they finish the program at $60,000. So it does have a significant impact on our economy, certainly if we're able to retain them into positions. So it's about a $50 million economic impact, both from a faculty payroll perspective, staff researchers, and the additional students. Another note is just the research funding coming into our region as well. This new integrated health initiative would actually increase research funding by $2.9 million, which is tripling the existing funding that we currently have at 1.6. In addition to this, we are working through opportunities, how we engage private sector. So looking at how private sector investment can be utilized and partnerships built to really look at the commercialization of this research. The final opportunity that I wanted to share, and again, there's lots of opportunities, so I've only picked a couple just to really demonstrate the model and how our agency is working again throughout the region on our opportunities. This opportunity really is about how we've expanded into the full region so that we build product, we engage the full region from a growth agency perspective. So this is a new festival that is being planned for St. Martin's, which the agency had a hand in. So it is the Fundy Sea Shanty Festival. Again, aligns with our 10-year outcomes, again, improving our place brand, attracting more people from a visitation perspective. But it does have some short and midterm outcomes as well, with certainly economic impact, with people staying throughout our region, filling our hotels, enjoying what we have to offer, increased visitation. It is an example of a new tourism product development because this is the first year for the Fundy Sea Shanty Festival, which is actually very popular worldwide. The second one closest to us is actually in Quebec. And this actually allows us to showcase parts of our region like St. Martin's that really elevates, again, the place brand and creating pride in place. It also aligns with trying to activate the Fundy Trail Parkway, a jewel of Atlantic Canada without doubt. Lots of opportunity for us to attract more visitors around, the opening of the Fundy Trail all the way through to Moncton. So just allows us again to build out more strategies to focus on the enhancements. The other piece for this festival is where we've been able to, as an agency, start to connect some of our partners. So DP World actually came to our city as one of the major employers at the port from a logistics perspective, came to town in 2018, very large company, and are committed to St. John, especially with the growth that's going to happen with CP coming back. And this was a natural fit for them to be an investor into this particular festival, and really was about how do we enhance their profile in the community so they get to know the community better, and felt it was a really good opportunity to how we could actually launch this festival. So everything we do around the agency really is about alignment and evaluation. All the activities and resources will always be aligned and go through that lens of our 10-year outcomes. That's the North Star. We're looking at everything that we do, to make sure that there is a clear focus and there's not a creep to our mandate. We've aligned strategic platforms, which are opportunities that we will continually evaluate and will be measured to support our 10-year outcomes. So there are times when we may have identified an opportunity, and again, the model of the agency is to be agile, allow us to have this approach on evaluation. And if our opportunities are certainly yielding what we want from a growth perspective, we'll focus even more on them, work with our partners. Or if an opportunity is not going in the right direction, we have the ability to abort. So it's really being mindful and being agile to what's happening in the world and being able to adapt into it. The other commitment we have is quarterly impact reports for our investors. And certainly from a municipal perspective, you are our investor. So we will be coming to you on a quarterly basis and reporting how these platforms are working, how we're measuring the opportunities that we're working on from a strategic perspective, to give you full transparency and a line of sight from an investor's perspective. I'm also pleased to share that we have launched our regional growth dashboard. So we have launched this connected to our website. It's been open for just over 2 weeks. And this dashboard really is about meaningful metrics that will give insight into the health and the growth of our region. It is a shared dashboard because it really is shared indicators for our entire region. How are we doing from an economic and a social perspective? And it really, again, is that reflection of collaboration. So Dashboard 1.0 has been launched. We've already committed to Dashboard 2.0 because as we build this out and we socialize it and receive feedback, we will continue to look at what other indicators are meaningful and what is needed from a regional perspective to build our strategies. So I welcome everyone to go to our website, and you can link in and check out our dashboard at any time. It's live. There are updates monthly based on the data that we can get on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, and an annual basis. And of course, always here to help. We are in service. That is the role of the agency, is to support, our municipal investors, our full region on strategy. So I always like to end this slide on this question on how we can help. So I'm just going to stop sharing and then open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, Paulette. Council, do you have any questions? Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Paulette. Great presentation. It's good to see that you have some benchmarks in place, and that dashboard wasn't on our presentation, so it was nice to see that at the end. I guess my question would be, if I'm looking at the greater St. John region catchment area, and I'm thinking I'm an entrepreneur and I'm thinking of something, do I go to you, or do I go to ACOA, or do I go to the Chamber of Commerce? Like, where does this all fit with with the new entrepreneur that wants to get a startup, and how do they fit in with you?
Great. Great question, Deputy Mayor. I really appreciate it. So you do, they would come directly to Envision St. John. So part of the role of the agency for the full region is we're a navigator. So we're able to meet with entrepreneurs and help them navigate the entrepreneurial ecosystem, which includes, whether it's access to, and we do run a program called Impact Loans. We certainly have programs and partnerships with Connection Works and Planet Hatch, as well as UMB. So we are navigating the entrepreneur system in order for people to understand what level they're at and how we can support them throughout. So as part of the new agency, we have our website up and running, which was the first website. The second website that we will launch in the next couple of months will have more navigation around the role of the agency and how we can can help navigate for a new entrepreneur or an existing entrepreneur that actually wants to expand their business. So that's exactly what we're here for.
Thank you. And Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to thank you so much for your presentation. It was really well done, and some of the things that you talked about in your presentation, regarding the opportunity with the University of New Brunswick in St. John. I think that's extremely smart, and I really like the idea of you working with them to try to retain some of the students that come out of those programs, so they don't feel like they have to suddenly leave our city or our region and go to somewhere bigger, or like Toronto or anything like that. And I also wanted to say that I've been hearing a lot actually about the Fundy Sea Shanty Festival, I think it's called, or something like that. And you are very right. It is through TikTok. I go on it once in a while, and that's all you see is the sea shanties, and I think that's really smart that you're using new marketing techniques to stimulate this region. I applaud you for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. And I'm just looking to see if anyone else's hand is up. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. I know with COVID, it's been quite tough to navigate over the last year or so. So I guess just a question on as far as staffing. Are we fully up to date in staffing? Have we? I know because we're joint in this venture. We're looking at office space downtown or uptown and things like that. I'm just wondering where we are in that process once we get back to whatever the new normal is, and do we have enough? Do we have everybody currently employed, and are we kind of doing a hybrid right now, work from home, work from the office, or how is that working so far? Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Councillor Miller. So I'm pleased to say that in Vision St. John, we have a home. We actually have our office in Brunswick Square Office Tower, the 16th floor. And we actually have co-space we share with Opportunities New Brunswick, so some good partnerships there. We have built the agency, High Performance Agency. Right now, we have 12 people that are employed, and we are looking right now, we have postings in market for a couple of positions called Director of Growth. Our full complement will be around 15 people, so we're very close to that full complement. Of course, we have some summer students with our visitor information centers that we'll be posting there shortly. But the team is built. We're very clear on the work that needs to be done. Obviously that first year, building the strategic vision, looking at the KPIs, and now we've built out work plans and workflows as it relates to identifying those platforms and those opportunities, and the full complement's coming together quite nicely. Oh, one last response. We are actually working from our office at the Brunswick Square location. However, the past few weeks when we went to level 3, there certainly was a hybrid just in relation to the protocols. But we are certainly very accessible and open to a lot of meetings, and that's the way our meeting space is set up.
Thank you for that. Councillor Olson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to compliment Ms. Higgs on her presentation, and you've got a big job ahead of you. What an agenda! I mean, I don't even know what some of those words mean, but it's very interesting and exciting to take a look at the breadth of your presentation and just see what your goals are set. And that you're not going to be running out of things to do. It's covering all aspects of our whole region here, and just want to wish you the best of luck with everything there. And as you probably know, you can count on Quispamsis for support, continued support. So just thank you very much for the update.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. You're right, it is a big mandate. There's no way around that. But having said that, I would say that I feel really fortunate. for a number of reasons. One, we have a beautiful region, so we have a lot of natural assets. So we have a lot to work with from a team perspective, and that this is very much a collective impact model. So as much as Envision St. John is the lead for your growth agency, partners like Quispamsis, partners like our government agencies, whether it's post-secondary education, tourism, heritage and culture, Working New Brunswick, ACOA, Opportunities New Brunswick, this is a collective impact model, and that coupled with a lot of leadership that we have from entrepreneurs in the private sector, we're really lucky we have a lot of people leaning in and really focused on growing our region. And we're just very fortunate that we have all these natural assets to work with. So yes, it's a big mandate, but I can tell you, I feel really fortunate that we have the asset base that we do in our region to work from.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hicks, and certainly I don't think I've ever seen the region come together in a way that they have with this particular entity, and I'm very happy to see that from Granby, Westfield, St. John, Rothsay, Quispamsis, St. Martin's, and Hampton, that we are working collaboratively and we want this to succeed. So thank you very much for your presentation and your time this evening, and we look forward to our next installment of information from you. You have a good evening. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, public hearings, and we do not have any. Item number 7, minutes of the previous meeting. I'm looking for a motion on that. Deputy
Your
Mayor.
Worship, I would move. Oh, pardon me.
Go ahead, Councillor Bigger.
I was just going to move that the minutes be approved as prepared.
Okay, and it was seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if you missed it by mistake, but there was a motion with Ms. Hicks' presentation. That
I did miss that.
If you wanted, I could make that motion for you.
We have a motion on the table right now. We'll go back to that in just 1 second, okay?
Okay, certainly.
Thank you. So on the question, everyone in favor, please vote now. I guess we have it up on the screen. Motion carried 7-0. Now, Councillor Donovan, if you would like to make that motion.
Certainly. I would motion that Ms. Paulette Hicks be thanked for keeping council up to date on Envision St. John's key performance indicators, and her presentation be received and filed.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item number 8, unfinished business. A, January 18th, coming from January 18th of 2022, concerns re-consumer fireworks, staff report, acting CAO Aaron Kennedy, which was included. This was in response to a motion requesting that staff do a comparison of best practices and to come up with a motion that council could move. So I am looking for a motion on the information package that was issued to you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I don't know if I'm ready for a motion now. I wonder if we could have a little bit of discussion. Because personally, I kind of like number 1, but I'd also like a modified number 1 and have a bit of a conversation on it. Am I allowed to do that before we have?
I'm just going to refer to our clerk, Ms. Snow. Can we continue the discussion on the information that's been presented this evening?
Yes, Your Worship, and so council can arrive at what they would like to propose for a motion.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Miller,
Okay.
was there something
Thank you.
specific?
Yeah. So as we all know, this has been a topic for a while. And I have a lot of correspondence has been sent to me as well. And the vast majority is not looking for an outright ban. There are some that are looking for a ban, but the vast majority that I've received and the conversations that I've had personally is that they're looking at more restrictions based upon this. I also did a little bit of research. I think I sent it to everybody at one point. St. John's, Newfoundland, as an example, and Conception Bay South, and a few other places in Newfoundland. Actually, in December of 2021, they've changed their bylaws because they were having the same kind of discussion that we are having, especially with COVID. Is that they've changed it from just now they can only do it on 2 days, Canada Day and on New Year's Eve. And New Year's Eve, you're allowed to go to 12:30. I like a little bit of that. When I look at our original comment here was option one was a few of the holidays, which I am in total agreement with, 3 of them. So it would be Canada Day, New Brunswick Day, and New Year's Eve, and let New Year's Eve go till 12:30. I would be okay with that. But every Friday and every weekend, I am not okay with that. So it's a bit of a modification, and also something that I don't think we need to sign off on this tonight if we can't. There's also something that I read, and I've been doing a lot of research on different types of fireworks. There's ones that are called silent fireworks, but they're not really silent. They just have a little bit lower decibels. So there's no such thing as a silent fireworks, at least from what I've read. But I do think it may be prudent or something to think about of banning some of the ones that have absolutely no visuals, i.e. cherry bombs, bang snaps. There's a whole bunch of different words, but they just basically go up in the air, a very loud bang, and there's no lights. So that's kind of my thought right now is don't ban them outright, but I would prefer that we kind of take a little bit of option one is restricted to 3 days only. And if somebody wants something above and beyond that, that there would be some type of process that they would have to apply for, not an easement, but a special license to do it. I think those should be rare given out, but I think there should always be an option there for somebody that if they do want to have something for a certain reason, or there's a certain event that's happening in Quispamsis that we get voted, whatever it is, the best place to live in for the second time in a row in Canada. Maybe there's, but we need a little bit of an option there. But I'm a little bit with option one, with the exception of not having every weekend from May till September. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Donovan, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did review the 3 options as well, and I personally am leaning more towards option one, just as Councillor Miller had just indicated as well. The only thing that I will differ with him on is, the not having them on the weekends. I actually would prefer them just to be on the weekends, and I'm fine with the May to September or whatever it was. I can't remember the certain months, but I don't think we should limit it to 3 days. Yeah, you're not having an outright ban, but technically, if you're going to limit them to 3 days of the year, that's not really the greatest route to go in my opinion either. So I'm okay with option number one, but as it stands currently, if council decides to go in a direction as Councillor Miller just stated, on New Year's Eve to allow them to go till 12:30, I'm fine with that. But for me, that every weekend, and people are going to be probably mad at me for saying this, but I actually would prefer that. And that is, that's my opinion. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. And my apologies, I don't know who is next in queue. So I will go to Councillor Luck, and then I will go to Deputy Mayor Schreier. Thank you.
Actually, Deputy Mayor was before me, so I'm quite happy to wait if she wants to speak. Oh, okay.
She said go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, Your Worship. So I'm just going to kind of refer to some of my notes. So I do want to thank, Councillor Miller and Councillor Donovan for, sharing their viewpoints. And I want to thank the acting CAO, Mr. Kennedy, for providing us with the report of best practices. It does sound like, some municipalities have chosen to ban them, and I'm happy that we are, taking the time to discuss this. I do believe that based on our discussions from the last council meeting, that we would prefer to find a middle ground, that we can enjoy fireworks, but while still be being neighborly and respectful to others. And as a lot of the councillors have seen, is since tonight's agenda was posted publicly yesterday, we received a lot of emails with numerous concerns about the 3 options that were provided. I personally was surprised that such an important topic that has created so much division in our town came back to the agenda so quickly. I think changing a bylaw is not a task that we should take lightly, and I think we need to give this topic the due diligence it deserves to ensure we do create a best version of a bylaw that's going to find that middle ground in our community that we need. I'm not naive enough to think that we're ever going to develop one that's going to get 100% compliance, because I don't think you can show me any bylaw or policy that we have now that has 100%. However, I do think that we need to take our time to evaluate the multiple facets to this bylaw, and we've seen this tonight where there's still kind of various perceptions and kind of wants and needs that are expressed. So we did receive an email from a resident that has held professional fireworks license for over 30 years, highlighting a few additional ideas that I think we should be discussing for consideration. So again, in conjunction with what Councillor Miller and Councillor Donovan had said, currently, I don't believe our bylaw has any details regarding specific distances from buildings, hydro lines, and trees. It's more of a general statement. And I do wonder if, again, if we're going to do it, I think we should do it right and not just tick the box and move on. I think if we're opening up this can of worms, let's open it up and try and look at the whole bylaw and kind of make it kind of work for everybody. So that's one thing I'm wondering, is if we should put in an actual distance, because when you kind of give that generality, there's a lot of room for interpretation. So again, is it 15 meters from a building, 20 meters, whatever it is. We also don't make any note in our current bylaw around point of sale in our community. So, should we be commenting in our bylaw around having a posted sign close to the fireworks display or at the counter stating when they can be detonated? Because again, there's going to be a big piece around awareness. Like, it's great that we have a bylaw, but if people think they can detonate them all days, every day. So I think that might be something else we want to consider when we're putting the bylaw together, is to have something around point of sale. And then also, I know in our staff report, it talked about needing a permit. I'm glad that Councillor Miller brought that up. I realize that it is additional administrative burden, but I would like to know, the one thing I didn't get from the report was, does it actually work to potentially help the concerns that we're trying to deal with? So I would like to know that as well. And then again, my concern around, it seems like, I know it's not really a winter issue. Ironically, it happened on Christmas this year, and that's what brought it to council. But I do think perhaps having them every weekend, all summer long in spring, seems like a little bit too much. I don't know what that happy medium is. If it's all holidays, or perhaps like, the last Saturday of every month, I'm not sure. I think that there needs to be something, but it needs to be consistent so people can plan. Because I think, to me, the underlying issue is people do want to know it's happening so they can make sure their dog's on a leash, or they keep their dog inside, or what have you. So if we can figure out that middle ground. The email that we did receive did provide a few additional resources, and has offered to share, this gentleman from our community has offered to share his experience as well. Personally, I would like to see us change the bylaw once and not rush this important decision. So I think, it would require a bit more information, discussion, and critical thinking to make the best bylaw and decisions for our town. So I know that our acting CAO has done a small kind of environmental scan of the cities and towns, but I do feel like there's almost a middle step where perhaps, either going back to the drawing board with all the feedback tonight, or even putting a small working group together with maybe a bylaw enforcement officer, the gentleman that has the expertise in the community, maybe, a few counselors, to kind of come back with what we're talking about tonight, so we can develop a strong bylaw that addresses all the things that I just mentioned before we vote on it. So again, there's my plea. I think it is an important topic, and I would like to find that middle ground somehow. And I don't want us to rush it just for the sake of moving on. I will put a little caveat in. We're still figuring out bee poop, and it's taken us quite a long time to do that. So I think fireworks probably, deserves the same due diligence. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Locke. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I was reviewing this today, sort of took me back to the motion a few council meetings ago, and part of that motion read that council requests that KV Fire Department include fire safety information in their public education programs and links to the town. And I think that's really important. If anything, when people know more, they do better. And education is a great tool. And I believe that we need to incorporate that so that, we have a community that respects everyone. And so if they hear about, I know there's no such thing as silent fireworks, but there is such thing as lower noise fireworks. I actually called a company today to find out a little bit about it. And correct, it's not silent, nothing's silent. So there's other opportunities there as well for the public to become more engaged in, and how that they might be able to help their neighbors and be more cognizant of what someone else might be going through with fireworks. So I just didn't want us to leave out that education component. I think it's fairly easy to do. We put it on our website. There's all sorts of, especially in the summer. I don't know if I want to get into this day, not that day, this day, not that day. It becomes very convoluted. We need a bylaw that's easy to read, that it's pretty simplistic, that the residents will say, okay, yeah, I can have fireworks as long as I do this, this, and this. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Schreier. I am looking. I don't see any other questions. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the variation possibly of number 1, like Councillor Councillor Miller has referred to, and possibly with a few other comments in there, but I don't think that we have to delay it, too long, but I like some of the recommendations that were put forward by our CAO and Councillor Miller.
Okay, so there is a recommendation, and the recommendation was that council move one of the recommendations listed above. I'm just looking to see if anyone had their hand up. If there is not going to be a recommendation made tonight, then what is the motion? Councillor Miller and Councillor Thompson?
Councillor Thompson first, yeah.
Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, you are on mute.
Can't hear you.
Just no, we still can't hear.
think you can now.
There we go. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that I'm prepared to make a motion that we, I would go with number 1 with some modifications to it. Some of the modifications that were suggested by Councillor Miller, some of the way that it is written now is okay by me, but there are some issues, I guess, that it would just have to have a few modifications to it. But to me, it's pretty clear. It's a pretty clear bylaw. It may need a little bit of tweaking, but the whole issue of the number 1, I mean, aside from we ban fireworks altogether, that number 1 may need a little bit of tweaking, but I would support the number 1. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. So what I've gathered from this is that no one is in favor of a complete ban of fireworks in the town of Quispamsis. Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I guess from the comments that the councillors have made, it sounds like most people are in favor of 1, but I guess because, you know, I mean, Councillor Thompson just said it still needs tweaking. Councillor Miller has commented that he'd like to see some tweaking. I guess, do we want to rush it tonight? I mean, honestly, I don't think fireworks are going to be a big issue for another few months now because we're buried in snow. So I'm just wondering if we could take the comments that all of us shared tonight and put it in a clear proposal so we can actually vote on it. So again, it gives it the due diligence it deserves versus us trying to rush through and miss something. I think there's been some great points here tonight, but I just would like to see, you know, staff potentially come back together with bylaw enforcement officer, perhaps pulling, you know, some different people in that have expertise in this, and then come back to us knowing that we want number 1 tweaked. I guess it's just, I don't really see us voting on that tonight because we don't have the details. So, I mean, at some point we're gonna have to revisit it. So I'm just wondering if we should revisit it first and then bring it back to councillor with the tweaked parts of the first option.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Councillor Miller. Before I go to you, Councillor Miller, I'd like to hear from the acting CAO, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think we're at the point that staff needs a little more direction than simply tweaking recommendation 1. If council doesn't like recommendation 1, there was a discussion of picking 3 days of the year. I think it was New Year's Eve and Canada Day and New Brunswick Day, and actually extending the hours that would allow the detonation of consumer fireworks in Quispamsis on New Year's Eve, because technically now the noise prohibition bylaw does not allow the detonation of consumer fireworks after 11 o'clock on any night, New Year's Eve, notwithstanding that. So we're not planning to, push this bylaw forward tonight, and that will certainly take some time, and there will be a lot of due diligence in that. But I think staff needs some direction from council, because sort of the biggest item in terms of this fireworks bylaw is when are residents going to be able to detonate consumer fireworks in the town of Quispamsis. So by saying we like 1 with tweaks, it would be helpful to staff if we knew tonight what those tweaks were, so we can go back and do our due diligence and then come forward with a bylaw, which obviously would then have to go through the proper process, first, second, and third reading before it was enacted into law. So I respectfully ask for a little more than just we like 1 with some tweaks. And if a motion were made to say it is going to be these 3 specific days as had been mentioned, or it's going to be recommendation 1 as presented, a motion in that regard would be quite helpful to us, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kennedy. So we need clarification. We need a little more information. We can't set this on fire with staff to come back and hope that they know all the tweaks that we need. So I'm going to go now to Councillor Miller.
Actually, Mr. Councillor Bigger hasn't spoken yet. His hand was up, so I can speak after him if that's okay.
I apologize, Councillor Locke, it was blending in with the background. Thank you. I'm sorry, Councillor Bigger.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you everybody for your thoughts and feedback. I guess I would have to say at this stage that this may require a little bit of offline analysis just to be able to formulate, as the CAO has requested, some more specific and succinct kind of direction on this. I agree with Councillor Olson. I'm not interested in delaying this. Anybody is, but I mean, I'm wondering what the opinion would be of our police department on being, sort of having, I don't know, added or heightened responsibilities about trying to follow up on these sorts of situations, or with bylaw enforcement. I personally am somewhat agreeable to maintaining the status quo, so we certainly don't have a unanimous position amongst everybody. I'm open to the idea of modifying it. I worry that we create a situation where people may begin to plead their individual case about dates and milestone moments that are particularly important to them, and that we're adding more administrative work to staff, perhaps needlessly, to have permits filled out. And as has been pointed out in the staff report, that doesn't really have anything to do with people violating the current standards that exist now pertaining to the detonation of fireworks or noise bylaw and fire safety. And so, like the deputy mayor, I agree that the previous motion that was considered on January 18th regarding adding a public education component to the KVFD's efforts as it pertains to consumer fireworks detonation and following federal and provincial regulations, that would be a valuable thing to do, and that perhaps links could be added to websites, whether it be the KVFD or the town of Quispamsis, or perhaps both. But I guess I would have to throw my sort of vote towards some metered, measured, limited offline discussion on this. I guess that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, here, I'll put my hand down. There we go. So I guess exactly like the acting CEO was discussing, we need somewhere to go from here. So I would like to make a motion to at least get that ball rolling, and then we can see this in either the next council meeting or the one in March. So I'll say March, because that way that'll give us a month if we want to adjust some of the other bylaws. But I would move that staff look at reworking our bylaw that would limit the detonation of consumer fireworks in Quispamsis for 3 days of the year, Canada Day, New Brunswick Day, and New Year's Eve, from dusk to 11 for Canada Day and New Brunswick Day, and up to 12:30 on New Year's Eve. Any other requests that have to do a special permit. And also, when we're adjusting these bylaws, that we update or enhance any current issues that we may see, i.e. about putting them towards hydro lines, how far away from your house, be more specific. So I will make that motion and see if that gets at least 4 votes, and that'll start the process for staff. If that's okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. It's been moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question.
On the question?
Okay, I believe Councillor Luck had her hand up first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Miller, for starting us off. I definitely think we're on the right track. I'm very cognizant of trying to find that middle ground, and I'm just wondering if there's any appetite to looking at perhaps a few additional holidays, like there's Victoria Day, like, again, so it still keeps it simple because, it's based on kind of celebratory holidays, but then, it's basically, it gives people a few more options. So anyway, I'm just thinking when you look at, because originally we kind of started with May to September. So if we looked at Labor Day and Victoria Day, it still gives us kind of almost like a day a month within the popular fireworks time plus New Year's that people can still enjoy fireworks. So anyway, I'm going to just put that out there. So I think that that would potentially be a happy medium, and people know today is, a holiday and there might be fireworks in my backyard. So I'm going to tie up my dog, or at least, head to St. John that bans them for the night. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
okay with that. If the secondar's okay with that. It's just adding 2 more days if Councilor Olson's okay with that.
Yes. Ms. Snow, both the mover and the seconder are okay with that amendment?
So that was the addition of Victoria Day and Labor Day, was it?
Yes. And Deputy Mayor Schreier, did you have something you wanted to add or to the discussion?
On the question, I do. First of all, I wanted to hear the motion again back, and then I wanted to follow up once I heard the motion read back to me, please.
Ms. Snow, could you please read the motion as you have it?
So council direct staff to come back to council in March with a reworked proposed bylaw that would limit the detonation of consumer fireworks to 5 days per year. That would be Canada Day, New Brunswick Day, and New Year's Day, and Victoria Day and Labor Day, from dusk to 11 p.m. with the exception of New Year's Day, which would go to 12:30 a.m. And any special occasions consideration would have to be done via permit, and distances noted from hydro lines, trees, etc. Am I missing anything?
Thank you. I don't know if Councillor Miller had the intent to extrapolate all of bullet number 1, because there's also an attachment to that, and implement higher fines for violations of the bylaw. So Councillor Miller, I don't know if that was a part of your motion.
That's fine. That's fine. Yes, I'm okay with that. As long as Councilor Olson's okay that.
Yes, both mover and seconder. Okay, I don't see on the question.
Yes.
Yes.
Have to have that read. So what we're creating are certain days that you can do this and certain days that you can't do this. So I find that just convolutes the bylaw, and then to get a special permit. So then you're in the position of, well, what's the special permit versus your special permit? Like, where do you draw the line? And when you start putting certain days that you can only do this then, and you can only do it at this time, and you can only, there has to be a bylaw that we can all live with, and understand the big picture here is respect for our neighbors, and understanding where they're coming from at the same time, and how we can bring that all together. It's not all about restriction and stop. It's so that's why I keep on coming back to the education part and how important it is, because the more that people learn about their neighbors and what might be affecting them, that's how we're going to make progress, not by putting everything under the sun into a bylaw that I'm not quite sure how it's all would be enforced with our police, and somebody had mentioned that as well. So I'm having trouble justifying putting all special dates in here and deciding, well, who gets what and who doesn't when they ask for a special permit. So I don't think I could support that motion. Thank you.
We have a motion on the table. It's been moved and seconded. On the question, you have a question?
Councillor Bigger and Councillor Donovan.
Councillor Donovan.
Have their hands up.
Am I okay to speak or?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I don't know. I'm gonna start off by saying that I really dislike this direction that we're going in. You know, I'm not a fan of it, and I'm personally I'm prepared to vote against it. I really think the 5 days is, you know, it's I don't know. It just seems like it's not enough for me. It seems like we're limiting people, and I don't like that direction. I'll follow up exactly with what Deputy Mayor Mary Schreier said. You know, I feel like education is a very big point. And, you know, earlier she mentioned, you know, maybe going to the source of where people are buying fireworks and putting up signs or you know, trying to, you know, educate people in other ways. But again, I don't think this 5 days thing is going to work. I think people are going to set them off regardless. And I know you're always going to have that. But, you know, in my opinion, I'm not, no, I don't like the 5 day thing. So that's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Bigger, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to say that if we're going to pass a motion or vote on a motion and perhaps pass it as it's been stated by the town clerk and as per the direction from initially Councillor Miller and then some others, as I understand it, there is a sort of a caveat in there that outside of the days that are sort of overall approved by council for consumer fireworks to be used, there would have to be a special permit process put in place for people who are celebrating whatever it is, milestone moment or what have you. And I just, without knowing like what the adjudication process is for that and how you decide who to approve and who not to approve, and I won't be able to vote in favor of this motion as it stands currently. I'm not interested in belaboring and you know, having this thing languish, but I certainly would be in favor of like a bit of further discussion. I think Councillor Luck makes a valuable point that it's kind of unlikely, generally speaking, that fireworks come back in vogue the way they are in the summer for another month or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how many snowstorms we have. And but I'm confused. I don't understand. Like, we're saying that we're going to perhaps look at limiting a few days, and then people are going to have a special permit for other events, and who decides that, and how, and what if people disagree with that? And so as it stands currently, I'm in favor of the idea of a little more discussion, a little more research. Like everybody, I'm eager to get past this issue, but it seems to be important, and so that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. On the vote, please vote now. Motion defeated. 3-4. Those who were against the motion, Councillor Bigger, Councillor Luck, Donovan, and Deputy Mayor Schreier. Those in favor, Councillor Miller, Olson, and Thompson. Thank you. Moving forward to item
Your
8.
Worship, do we need a motion though to kind of close this loop?
Some direction would be helpful.
Is someone going to make or give direction to staff? Councillor Thompson. Okay. We still can't hear you, Councillor Thompson. A little bit of technical difficulties this evening. I guess if anyone needs a 7th inning stretch, you could stand up and stretch.
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
We can hear you now, Beth.
Okay, you can hear me, but I can't see me. Yes, Your Worship, I would suggest that we defer this bylaw until such time as we've had some time to sort of think about it and bring it back for the next meeting for some discussion, and possibly we'll come up with a bylaw that works at that time once everybody has some time to sort of think of what they want.
Once again, that is rather open-ended. Within the next 2 weeks, I believe initially it was called for in March, at which time we have one meeting on the 3rd week of March. I'm wondering if that would give staff more time. I don't know what their schedules are like in carving this out over a short period of time. Perhaps the CAO could comment on that.
Your Worship, I'm not sure what more staff can add to this debate. We need direction from council as to where council wants to go with the detonation of consumer fireworks in Quispamsis. We have nothing more to add that I can think of at this point in time. We provided council with 3 recommendations. I don't know if it's appropriate for another motion where that one has been defeated to move forward with something, but as for now, it would be my understanding that the noise bylaw and fire prevention bylaws are obviously they're still very much in effect, and that will be how fireworks are governed in Quispamsis until council gives us further direction and a new bylaw is created. So if that's, I guess that's recommendation number 2 is the status quo. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. So as it stands right now, we have the status quo with the noise and fire bylaw in place. The motion was defeated this evening. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would there be any appetite to do, I mean, it sounds like, you know, we all want the best for this bylaw and we're trying to find this middle ground. And again, we don't have the time tonight to really hash it out. Could we put a motion, and I appreciate that as town staff feel like they've provided us all the information. It's really up to us to kind of sort it out. Could there be a motion that, similar to my original comment, is that we kind of convene a small working group where we can maybe pull in someone from the police department to find out, because at the end of the day, they're going to be living with all the calls, and maybe one of the bylaw enforcement officers, maybe a town staff and a few councillors, that we can kind of hash it out and kind of weigh the pros and cons and look at some of the evidence and look at, some other best practices, and perhaps even bringing in the community member that has the 30 years of, that reached out and, again, he has some insight to share. I don't know if that's the solution. I just feel like there needs to be more discussion on this before, I think the residents do want some type of decision. And I'm just wondering if that's more of an actionable moving forward versus just kind of letting it languish.
Thank you. I think from the letters that I had seen, most of the 2 or 3 people who had submitted letters were basically people who wanted the fireworks banned from Quispamsis. I don't know that extending the discussion time is going to change that. I don't believe that's what council is asking. So what you're asking is to taper a set of rules or a bylaw for the use of fireworks within the town limits, and that you want to sit down as a group, a working group. I'm not sure who's going to be appointed, if they're going to be, if that's something you want the nominating committee to do. It just seems that we are pushing the snowball down the hill and it's getting bigger and bigger. So if we could refine
just
this
to
somewhat.
Yeah, to speak to that, your worship, there was a few people, and I believe it was Mr. Ramsey that wasn't in favor of banning them, but he does have 30 years of experience in the professional domain with fireworks. So I thought he might be able to provide some insights to us. And I think just looking around the room at council, there's a variety, like, there's enough variety of opinions that I'd like to see if people, for example, Council Donovan doesn't want them, he wants them all the time, whereas other people might want them a little bit less. So maybe having those two people in the same room to look at the literature and figure out, what's the best way forward. So I think we have kind of a skeleton started. It's just that, it's how many days, and, I guess it's just, there's a lot of stuff to discuss to kind of find that happy medium.
Thank you. So I'm going to leave this to have, I guess, if you want to take that on, Councillor Luck, I don't know. I don't know where to go from here, because we've done the due diligence that was requested of council, and we're not banning them. So that was my thought, is that people wanted them banned, and that we are not doing that. So now we are adding in some layers that that are going to restrict the use of fireworks. And again, there's a measure of oversight to that if people break those rules. I'm not sure, Mr. Kennedy, if you can give me any insight into this.
Well, Your Worship, there's no question that this is a polarizing issue. One could argue that the council of the day 5 or 6 years ago did try to find some common ground in terms of making 11 o'clock as the cutoff for the detonation of consumer fireworks. And truly, in the summer months, July and August specifically, that pretty much gives people 1 hour per day to detonate fireworks. It's not dark enough until 10 o'clock, and they only have 11 o'clock to do it. I'm not sure how often council had been approached on this subject prior to the extremely unfortunate incident that happened on Christmas Eve. And certainly don't want to diminish that would be a horrifying situation to be in, that to have fireworks bouncing off the side of your house on any night, but let alone Christmas Eve. But at that time, the councillors who had reached out to me over the holidays were concerned about public safety and the threat that something horrific could have happened in terms of a structure fire. The fire chief, not to put words in his mouth, but basically said, as council is aware when he presented 2 weeks ago, that from the fire services perspective, the use of consumer fireworks is not a significant cause of structure fires. It's not really an issue for them. So then it becomes a noise issue from council's perspective. Certainly we're aware of the impact that it has on dogs and wildlife and birds and people who are suffering from PTSD, and those are horrific things, obviously. But I agree with your comments earlier, Your Worship, that the people who have been sending myriad emails to council over the last few weeks are looking for a full-fledged ban. And I suspect that those people are not going to be satisfied with anything less than that. So one could argue that what is in place right now is a compromise. It's not going to satisfy everybody, but conversely, it's obvious that if fireworks are being used in Quispamsis on a fairly regular basis in the summer, people enjoy that. When we see thousands of people, tens of thousands of people go to St. John, and they missed that last year. And again, perhaps there were more fireworks in use last year because of COVID. And we get calls to town hall and we see Facebook messages. How come Quispamsis doesn't have fireworks on Canada Day? So ultimately, this is a decision of council. If council is satisfied with the status quo, the 11 o'clock shutoff, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we'll probably see emails to councillors tomorrow from people, or maybe tonight from people who aren't happy with that. But I think generally speaking, in terms of what the majority of citizens want, that could be the compromise, the one that's already in place, the status quo. And again, that's just, from what we've heard, but I think I agree with you, Your Worship, that there's certainly a faction of people that want a ban, and they're not really looking for middle ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's not a motion on the floor, is there? No. I'm prepared to put a motion on the floor.
Yes, Councillor Luck was talking about putting a motion on, but it wasn't finalized and not a seconder. I'm not sure if Councillor Luck, you plan to.
My apologies to Councillor Luck. Councillor
that's
Luck.
okay. I guess I was really looking for the other councillors to kind of feed in. I just feel like the current bylaw isn't working the way, again, you just have to go to social media or look at our emails. There's people for and against. So I personally think that we need to tweak it somehow. And what those tweaks are, if it's up to us, and based on my earlier comments, I do think that this is something that we shouldn't rush. So I don't know if, I'm not sure if, based on the town clerk, can we do some type of working group to kind of sort this all out? Because I don't think we're going to settle on something tonight, but I would like to kind of perhaps do a bit more research to kind of find out, are there other things that we can maybe explore that would find that middle ground? I think that the people that are strongly opposed and want it banned, I think also most of them were referring to the three options where they didn't feel like, the option was either ban it outright or basically have them all the time, all summer long. So I'm guessing if there's, some flexibility there in terms of them being able to prepare for fireworks, it would still kind of meet the needs of the residents. And I definitely think the whole education piece is a big one. So people understand being respectful and compassionate to their neighbors and, trying to stay, understand why people don't like them. But I'm looking for my other councillor colleagues to perhaps, I see Councillor Miller raising his hand, to help with the motion, because I'm not sure what that looks like. And if people are interested in having a quick working group to kind of look at other solutions or keeping things status quo.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Ms. Snow, did that answer your question?
Well, council is certainly within its means to, if it wishes to appoint an ad hoc committee or a working group committee. I believe Councillor Luck was looking at perhaps a couple members of council, representative from the Quispamsis Regional Police Force, a bylaw enforcement officer, and perhaps the CAO. That would be up to council. That's their prerogative if they wish to appoint a working group.
Thank you, Ms. Snow. I see some hands up, and I apologize. I don't know who's next in queue. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I think we just got to get this moving on. And yes, there was some emails from people that wanted the ban, but also some of those people lived in St. John, if you find out where they're from, right? So, so there's at different spectrums. I know there's different various opinions, which is perfect. That's what democracy is all about. But I was pretty sure that everybody wanted some type of variation of number one. They may not have liked the variation that I came back with, but it's some type of variation of number one. So versus us talking about this for the next hour and not getting anywhere, I am okay with being part of a group that comes back with something different that tries to make this, because I am definitely against the current status quo. They were going off last night. I know it was Lunar New Year, but they were going off last night as well. I think we do need to be specific, and there was comments about it's too confusing if we only do 5 days. I think it's easier if we only do 5 days. It's done. It's over. It's not a ban. You got 5 days to do it. I used to shoot off fireworks for the kids Canada Day 2 years ago. I get it. But the town is bigger than it ever used to be. And yes, COVID's been part of this, but they're going off all the time. They're going off at night. You got people that, anyways, doesn't matter. We know why we trying to change it. So I'm okay being part of a group to get this done. There's no date involved, but let's move this forward and come back with something. I'll work with whoever on some type of modified version 1. So I'm putting my hand up to do that. It's not a motion, but put me on a committee and let's go, because we're not going to solve it today. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. And just bearing in mind that that motion was defeated with all of the variations, I am going to stop this discussion at this point, and I am going to appoint a committee from council, and we'll go forward from there. Thank you. Item C, 8C, Stonehurst Subdivision Phase 1, Woodley Development, Limited Final Acceptance. Staff report from Engineering Manager Mark Morrison, which was in your package.
Your worship, I believe there's an item about trail maintenance before we get to that one.
Oh, okay, I was a little ahead of myself. Item B, Ms. Burton-Dixon, the trail maintenance staff report from the Director of Community Services. And this is responding to previous correspondence from Councillor Luck and residents requesting winter maintenance of trails. And I believe you have a recommendation on this. I don't know if you would like to speak to that, Ms. Burton-Dixon. I see Deputy Mayor Schreier's hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm prepared to make a motion on this that council receive and file, as this item has been referred to the 2023 budget process. If it is identified as a request level of service through the recreational master plan, master transportation plan, or strategic plan.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is, obviously I spoke out about this at the last meeting, and it's not the direction I was hoping we would go in. Just reading a little bit from the staff report from the Director of Community Services and Engineering and Works. It says, in a general sense, if there was no priority placed on the timing of the plowing and cleanup, then the QR trail could be plowed by town works equipment after storm events and after street clearing operations have ceased. This is normally 48 to 72 hours after the main snow event. I apologize to the Director of Engineering or the Community Services if I came across as wanting the trails done before the roads and before the sidewalks. Obviously, that's not the case, and that's not what I was trying to put out there. I just would like to see the paved section of the QR trail plowed. I would like that to happen. And it was mentioned in that same report that we don't have the equipment, and they mentioned the Director of Engineering and Works mentioned that the sidewalk plow is 6 feet. In my opinion, if the sidewalk plow is good enough to plow the sidewalks at 6 feet, it should be okay to plow the QR trail as well. It doesn't. I'm not asking for them to go over it 2 or 3 times to make it the full 12 feet or however long the QR or however wide the QR trail is. I'm just asking for it to be walkable. I drove by the other day and there was a big mountain of snow. Obviously, we've had that big snowstorm, and I get that takes time, but and I've had residents continuously reach out to me, and they are very upset that they cannot walk there, and I don't blame them, and I'm not trying to be rude in any sense, but I'm really discouraged sometimes reading some of these things, because I think there are ways we can do this. I don't know. That's my piece, and I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. And we do rely on staff for their investigation and their expertise. These are all professional people with expertise in their fields, so we do have to take their findings. So thank you for your comments. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. Let me just put my hand down here. Again, I kind of, agree with Councillor Donovan's comments. I can't say I'm not disappointed that we're kicking this down the road, especially in light of the doozy of the winter that we're having. So, again, I'm all about looking at ways of supporting our residents so they can get out and safely exercise in fresh air. And this year has been extremely challenging, especially this last month, and it doesn't seem to be ending. I realize the $7,000 or $8,000 seems like a big ask. I am looking ahead in our agenda, and we're going to be asking for double that for another thing that wasn't budgeted for. But I do know that the money tree out back is not endless. And but again, I'm looking for ways to support our residents this winter. So I'm hoping that perhaps we can figure out a solution that could work for everybody and our budget. As Councillor Donovan mentioned, Mr. Logier in his report suggested that he could plow the QR trail with existing staff if there was no priority placed on it. So again, it would be basically 72 hours afterwards. Don't expect to be walking the trail after a snowstorm. So I'm wondering, if nothing else, if that could be an option. And when the trail is clear, perhaps we can post it on the Facebook page so residents are aware. It's not perfect, but at least it would still allow residents to get out on a plowed area so they can safely walk. Also, perhaps if we can't do that, I'm wondering if maybe plowing and sanding the Qplex outdoor track, which might be less costly and is closer to the works department, but people can still get out on a clear patch of dirt and get some fresh air and safe footing. So anyway, and then the other question I had directed to Mr. Logier about his report was that it talked about, I think it was, I don't know if it was Mr. Logier or maybe Ms. Perkin-Dixon, around the plowing of all municipal parking lots are mentioned. And I'm just wondering if the QR parking lot is currently plowed to allow access to people to use that trail. Because again, that would be the other issue, is that if there's no place to park, then I don't know how people would actually get to the trail to use it, because again, just safety underfoot. So I'm wondering if someone could clarify if that parking lot is paved, and then also, is there any way of finding, again, it sounds like we could potentially do it, but not time limited, where we could maybe post it so people at least would know there's certain days that the trail would be a little clearer and safer to walk, and if that's an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Locke. I will go to one of the directors, Ms. Perkin-Dixon or Mr. Logier. I'm not sure who would like to respond to that question.
I can start.
Ms. Perkin-Dixon, thank you, Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. Parking lot for the QR trail is paved and it is plowed. And the question about sanding the track is, we have a sliding hill there. So currently we groom that, but we don't groom the section in front of the sliding hill. So we're not encouraging people to walk around that, because we don't want them to get taken out by children sliding. So we don't encourage the track this time of year. We groom it so that people can go around and into the trail system, but we don't groom that area for that reason.
Thank you, Ms. Perkin-Dixon. There's a motion on the table on the question.
Your Worship, can I just get a comment from Mr. Logier around, his report around the feasibility of still clearing that if it's not time sensitive?
Mr. Logier.
Your Worship, the timeline that I put into the comments to the Director of Community Services with regards to the 48 to 72 hours, and again, you're looking at perfect conditions. Quite frankly, after this past storm, this past weekend, we're still pushing back, so we wouldn't be even into the sidewalks or the trail for another couple of days. So that could be 5 days. So you're talking an extended period of time. My issue with priorities, and I realize that councillors may not place a priority on the requests, but it's the expectations of the residents that will be directing the calls to you or to my department with regards to why isn't this done yet. We try to do the best we can with the timelines and the people that we have, and there's going to be no guarantee with regards to how soon it can get done on a regular basis. I respect the fact that Councillor Donovan is not trying to be rude, but you're talking about a 10-foot path with a 6-foot piece of equipment. I can do something reasonably well with a limited piece of equipment, or I can do something terribly and try to do it to everything. So, you know, we have to be able to make sure we manage what we've got. I hate to throw out my sidewalks as an example of what a walking trail could look like, but currently the sidewalks, because they're being pushed back from the snow and the slush from the roads, I cannot even get a bare walking surface on my sidewalks with the gear that I have in place now. So the dedicated attention that's going to be required to bring trail to a standard that there's no expectations there. People think that it's going to be down to bare asphalt and that they can run at their leisure. They're going to be it's not going to happen. It will be snow packed in areas. It will be slippery in areas, and the expectation that somebody's going to be to you know the Director of Community Services is tries to maintain a certain standard on our trail is just not reasonable. As I said, we can go in there, we can push back snow. The conditions are not necessarily going to be what we envisioned that we're going to have for that type of a trail. It takes a specialized and a dedicated piece of equipment to do that on a regular basis. So once you go through there, we push the equipment back, then we got to go back to the streets and the courts and the cul-de-sacs where people are complaining because they can't get out of their street or their driveway, or they can't see around the corner. That's going to be our priority for the next couple of days. So for us, that's going to be a challenge when you get right down to managing expectations. And I think if everybody's saying, well, there's no expectations, just see what you can do, then the last thing I want to do is go in there, do something as best we can, and then still get complaints about it that we're not meeting expectations when there's no expectations to be identified. So it's a difficult position to be placed in. If it's council's direction, we can go in and we can do the best we can, as our staff will always do. But I want to go in with a caveat that you know, this is not going to be a perfect scenario for anybody at this stage of the game.
Thank you, Mr. Loge. And again, there is a motion on the table, and as with so many things, we don't like to rush how we go about completing these requests. So with the motion on the table, I would like to ask.
Councillor Olson has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Olson, Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to call the question.
Question's been called. Please vote now.
Just, Your Worship, mine's not coming up.
I can vote if you want to indicate, Deputy
Deputy Mayor,
Mayor.
are you in favor of the motion? She's saying that she is in favor of the motion. Motion carried 6-1. The nay was Councillor Donovan. Councillor Luck? Oh, I apologize. The nay was Councillor Luck. Item C, Stonehurst Subdivision Phase 1, Woodley Development Limited, final acceptance. And you have a recommendation before you. Councillor Miller, please.
Whereas the developer has satisfied the minimum requirements in accordance with subdivision bylaw number 035 and the developer's agreement, it would be in order for council to grant final acceptance of the Stonehurst subdivision phase 1 development, and further council approve the release of the $15,147.30 bond to Woodley Developments Limited.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item 9A, a letter from correspondence. A letter from Joyce McKelman, Warden, St. Luke's Anglican Church, request for exempt church from annual sewerage user fee for 5-year period.
Your
And there is
worship,
a recommendation there.
Mrs. McElman is on the phone to address council.
Welcome, Ms. McElman. Would you like to speak now, please? Ms. McElman, are you there? We seem to be having, once again, technical difficulties. Just have to be patient for a few seconds and see if we can get Ms. McElman online. Ms. McElman, if you can hear me, if you'd like to hang up and try again. And if you can hear me, please speak. Whenever you do, make connection. Ms. Snow, I don't think we have Ms. McElman online, and I don't think, she appears to be having trouble connecting with us.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out and let you know if she calls in.
Okay, I will go to item number B, if that is okay with council. To go to item 9B, staff report from Human Resources Manager, Catherine Shannon, new minimum wage increase. Welcome, Ms. Shannon. You go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. On December 2nd, the government of New Brunswick announced that minimum wage was going to increase in 2022. On April 1st, 2022 to $12.75 per hour. And then again on October 1st to $13.75 per hour. Currently, the town's rate for student wages is $12.50 per hour. Therefore, an increase is required to at least meet the minimum wage. So for 2022, to attract and retain top performing students and remain an employer of choice, it's recommended that the student wage rate be set at $13.50 per hour for the spring-summer season.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. And Councillor Luck, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, I don't know if that's on me, but there's lots of feedback. Is anyone else hearing that?
Your worship, I think it's because Mrs. McElman is not muted now and she's on call in. So I don't know if you want to just go back to that item so she can address council and then unmute and then we can go back to Catherine.
Okay.
If we unmute her, we might not be able to get her back on as
Sure.
well.
So
can we table this? Is that the right?
Well, yes, we can. That would be the perfect use of a tabling motion.
We're just going to put it on the table for 5 minutes and address the next one.
That's right. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. McElman. You are on the air.
Hello, it's Joyce McElman speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you and welcome. You can go ahead with your presentation.
I assume everybody has a copy of the letter that I sent. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct. It was in our in our package.
We just, as I explained in the letter, you know, we're facing a very difficult situation because at Gondola Point, or the Anglican Church in Gondola Point, we made the decision to go ahead and do the refurbishing of the envelope of the building, which included, you know, painting and new roof and basement that was being, you know, wearing away and so on. And so we made those decisions before COVID, and then COVID hit, and of course that has put a damper on any fundraising that we could do that involved gathering people in one place, which was what we were doing a lot of. So in our last meeting, we were trying to find ways that we could cut our budget, just you know, so that we could meet our day-to-day expenses. And the suggestion came up to remove the dusk to dawn lights. Well, people didn't like that idea. They felt that the groups that meet there in the evening at our hall need to have that lighting situation. We were getting close to the end of the meeting, and somebody said, we're talking about the Boy Scouts meeting there, and it's important that it be well lit so that no kid gets run over in the parking lot and so on. And that reminded me of back in the day when we were a village of Gondola Point, that the village gave us so that, or let us not, we didn't pay any sewage because we were, you know, opening up our building to the scouting group. And I think it was also being used as a center for emergency situations. Now, since we went to the town of Quispamsis, the bills, of course, have started up, and we're paying them. So we're just wondering if we might get a break for the next 5 years paying those sewage bills. It could make the difference between us meeting our obligation to get this amount of money that we owe paid off. And if you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. McKelman. I will open up to, the floor to council. I don't see any questions. No hands up. There is a motion in the package. Would anyone like to either begin the discussion or give the motion, please? Deputy Mayor Schreier.
I would like to ask a question, and thank you, Mrs. Joyce, for your letter. And I certainly sympathize with you because I know it's been extremely difficult on a lot of foundations and charities with COVID on how they fundraise. I guess my question would be to you, number one, is there any discussions happened with CMHC on loans that might be available, historical sites, loans that might be available through perhaps the Historic of Canada, because I know that church has been there a long, long time. And it's a quaint little church that sits on the hill and overlooks the water. So, you know, have you explored those options?
Well, as I said in my letter, the Parks Canada is paying half of our bill because it is a designated historical site. So we have that money, but we still have the other half, which is the $50,000. And we had a plan in place. We were going to, you know, we had begun by entertaining seniors groups on Saturdays with a tea-like setting and having music and that sort of thing. And they were well attended and people were having a good time. And then COVID hit. In fact, our last one was the 14th of March, 2 years ago. We all remember the 14th when it shut down 2 years ago. And so there might be other possibilities, but I expect most people would look at that and say, well, you're already getting $50,000. Why would you need more? Well, you know, we're a small church. We have a small congregation. And like I say, we had a plan in place. But was wondering if, you know, we're trying to squeeze out as much as possible, and wondering if this would be a possibility, or do you see this as something that you don't want other churches, for example, to come looking for a similar kind of break on their sewage bills?
Thank
Well,
you.
just to follow up on that, it is extremely difficult to have to look at your situation and not be able to help. Of course, that's the decision of council. But you know, it's I guess it's looking for every rock and every stone, and you know, make sure that you turn them over, and where exactly, you know, there could be, just with this conversation tonight, there could be somebody comes up with a suggestion of where there might be opportunities. I don't have those. I thought CMHC might be an area that you could turn to. But I'd have to give it more thought on who else that you might be able to find some donations from.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Schreier. There is a suggestion for a motion. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, would you like to read the motion?
Yes, Your Worship. As it is not the town's practice to waive utility fees, as the town's utility service are a user pay system with no property taxpayer dollars used to support the system, Council denied the request from St. Luke's Anglican Church for a 5-year exemption to their sewer user fee.
It has been moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. What's that? It was carried. Motion carried. 7-0. Thank you very much, Ms. McKelman, and best wishes with your challenges that are ahead, all because of COVID. We're very sorry for that. Thank you. So now we are going back to the staff report from the Human Resources Manager, Ms. Shannon. She has already given some insight to that. I am looking for a mover.
Your Worship, when we had tabled it, I was just about to speak on it.
Oh, yes, okay. Councillor Luck.
So I just had a question. So what the HR department is looking for is an 8% increase for money that we didn't budget in our 2022 budget. And currently what we have budgeted is $12.50. So really, to actually bring it up to the minimum wage for this summer, we would really only need to add 25 cents to the outstanding students, excluding the specialized technical ones. It sounds like we've already had money set aside that was higher. So I guess my question is, you know, in light of it not being a budgeted expense, and, you know, these are student positions, you know, minimum wage just went up, so they are going to technically be getting more money. Like, I'd be more comfortable doing a 2% increase versus an 8% increase and still being able to pay the students minimum wage for the summer. So I'm just throwing that out there. But again, it wasn't budgeted, and I know that, you know, we don't have the appetite to, you know, pull out of our reserves for everything. So anyway, I'm throwing that out there that we could still, meet the requirements of minimum wage for our students, because they are students, and still save quite a bit of money. Instead of doing 8%, we could do 2%.
Thank you, Councillor Locke. I'm going to go to Ms. Brandon, our treasurer.
Hi. So I just wanted to say, within our salary budget, we do try to budget fairly close to things. But again, we do our budget a little bit earlier now, so we don't get all of the information. So within our salary plan budget, we had budgeted based on our prior year experience with our WSMB. When that came in after the budget had passed, we have over budgeted in that area within our entire salary plan budget. A savings there of about $66,000. So there would be money within the salary plan budget to offset these salary costs. And again, historically, we have never just paid the minimum wage. We have always paid a little bit more for our students. So only increasing it by that 2%, yes, we'd be making minimum wage, or they'd be making the minimum wage. But as an employer of choice, is what we're trying to do in our community, we have always tried to be a little bit above that so that we can get some of the, the more top line students for our community.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say that I think this is a pretty good idea. I like that we're, putting our youth or our young people first. Young people are very important to me. It was something that I touted a lot during my campaign. So, yeah, I would like to thank our staff for thinking about putting us up a little bit more than maybe what's necessary, because as Miss Brandon said, I think this will give us a lot of quality in the people that we hire, and I just think it's all around, I just think it's a really good idea. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure who to direct the question to. Maybe the CEO, acting CEO. Is my understanding that the province of New Brunswick always provided so many staff, summer staff, and so would that, I guess first of all, maybe you can update me on whether or not they still do provide summer staff for the town of Quispamsis. And I always thought that it was a certain dollar amount, and then the town would top up the salaries of the summer staff. So would that, if that program is still in existence, would that not reduce our numbers that we're seeing here?
Thank you. I'm going to hand that over to Ms. Shannon.
So the town does apply for grants to offset costs. So that still is something that we apply for every year. So they apply for the Student Employment Experience Development Grant, Canada Summer Jobs, and Canadian Parks and Recreation.
So just to follow up on that, Your Worship, so for Department of Finance, yes, Kissa, if you could expand on that and how that would affect the budget?
So what I will say is that we, again, I like to have as much cash flow as we can, and we look to maximize every grant that we can, and we cannot double dip. So it is a very, it's a very time consuming process, but it's a very important process. We look to maximize every grant that we can get. So for the seed, which we have had, I think around 4 students for that. And we will maximize those grants as much as possible. We did for the Canadian Summer Recreation and the Canada Summer Jobs. So we look to maximize every grant. We do have those amounts budgeted, based on the hours, and there's a whole bunch of calculations that kind of go into that. So absolutely, we will look to maximize all of those grants. Is it going to offset it fully? It's going to depend on, again, the number of students, the number of grants we get, but we absolutely will look to maximize all of those grants to offset this.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon. Councillor Olson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council approve an increase of the student wage rate to $13.50 per hour for 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. It's been moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, please vote now.
Your Worship, I'm not getting the prompt, so I'll just say that I vote in favor.
And Deputy Mayor Schreier as well.
In favor.
Motion carried 6-1. The nay vote was Councillor Luck. Moving forward. Item number 10 is bylaws. There are none. Item number 11, new business, award of Qplex roofing tender. Staff report from the Director of Community Services. There is a Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council award tender 2021 TQ 12-34 to the low bidder, A-Tech Roofing, for $163,691, which includes HST.
Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Councillor Bigger, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just curious. I have a two-part question, but there's nothing super serious. I'm just curious. This is the reflective coating, so that's my first question. I'm just wondering if that's what this project is on the roof, and also when is this slated to start? Thank you.
Go ahead, Director of Community Services, Ms. Parton-Dixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, you're correct, Councillor Donovan. It is for the reflective coating on the Qplex roof. And it will be done, the work will be done in May or June. It's weather dependent, so it'll depend on temperatures.
The motion was moved by Councillor Bigger. Did we have a seconder on that?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just don't see it up there yet. Okay, on the question, I see no further hands up. Please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item number 12, reports. Moved by Councillor Donovan. Oh, Councillor Donovan, did you have a question or were you moving? Receiving
I've got a question, but or not a question, a comment. But I'll also move to receive and file once I'm done, if that's okay. It's just a quick one.
Go ahead with your question.
So my comment is, I know we've put it out on the KV Public Library Facebook page and on our town Facebook page as well and on Twitter and so on. But for everybody that is watching from home that may not know, the Kennebecasis Public Library is currently closed, and I believe it's going to be closed for the next week and a half, 2 weeks or so due to a flooding. So what I've just been following along, and what the acting director of the library, Nora Emerson, what she is recommending for people who may have books taken out or movies or whatnot, is to bring them to the St. John Library as well, because they're all connected. So I just wanted to pass that along in case anybody was going there and trying to figure out, why the lights were off and why they're on sometimes and the doors are locked, and that should explain it. But I would move that, the reports be received and filed, please.
Thank you for that information, Councillor Donovan. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan that the reports be received and filed. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Olson, thank you. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item number 13, business arising from Committee of the Whole. I don't believe there is any. Item number 14 is adjournment, moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Olson. Please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. I hope you find joy this week in Winterfest and have some fun outdoors. Good night, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week.